The air in Nashville smelled like rain and burnt coffee the morning Cole Harrington turned 53. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He never did. Linda had left a card on the kitchen counter. A simple one, blue with a small guitar drawn on the front in watercolor, the kind you find in the discount section at Walgreens, and she'd written inside it in her careful, rounded handwriting, "Still the best musician I know. Happy birthday, Cole. Love, Linda." He read it twice, folded it, and put it in the breast pocket of his flannel shirt, right over his heart, where it stayed for the rest of the day. The house was a modest two-story on Caldwell Avenue in East Nashville, a neighborhood that had once been rough around the edges, but had gradually softened into a patchwork of renovated bungalows, food trucks, and young couples with strollers and craft beer preferences. Cole had lived there for 21 years. He'd bought the house when he still believed, truly, deeply believed, that a record deal was just one more good audition away. Back then, the house felt like a launching pad. Now, it felt like an anchor, which wasn't entirely a bad thing, except on the mornings when he stood at the kitchen window with his mug of black coffee and watched the neighborhood move around him and felt like the world was a river and he was a stone on the bottom, still and unmoved while everything else kept flowing past. He was a tall man, lean in the way that people who forget to eat get lean, rather than the way athletes do. His hair had gone gray at the temples and silver at the crown, and his hands, large, rough-knuckled, the fingertips of his left hand perpetually calloused from 40 years of pressing steel strings against fretboards, were the most expressive things about him. When he talked, his hands moved. When he played, his hands became something else entirely, something almost separate from the rest of him, autonomous and alive in a way the rest of Cole Harrington rarely managed to be in public. He taught guitar on Tuesdays and Thursdays at a music school called Riverside Strings on Gallatin Avenue. 12 students, ranging in age from 9 to 61. He charged $40 a session, which brought in just enough to cover the gas to get there and back, and maybe one decent meal per week at the diner on Main Street where the waitress, a sharp-eyed woman named Peggy Caldwell, who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain and remembered every regular's order without writing it down, always refilled his coffee without being asked, and sometimes slipped him a slice of pie he hadn't ordered, just because. On weekends, Friday nights, and the occasional Saturday, he played at a bar called The Broken Spoke on Woodland Street. Not the famous one in Austin with the same name, just a local place with sticky floors and neon Budweiser signs and a small wooden stage barely big enough for Cole and his guitar, and the stool he always dragged out from behind the bar. The owner, a barrel-chested man named Dwight Calloway, who had a gray ponytail and a laugh like a truck backfiring, paid Cole $200 a night and let him run a tab. Cole never ran the tab. He drank water between sets and beer, only at the end of the night. One bottle, always the same brand. Shiner Bock, because it was Texas in a bottle, and George Strait drank it, or at least Cole had always imagined he did. He played covers, mostly. Strait, of course, always straight. Always at least 3 or 4 songs per set. The man's catalog deep and wide as a river. Amarillo by morning. The Chair. Oceanfront Property. Check yes or no. He played Alan Jackson, Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, Hank Williams Sr., some Vince Gill, occasionally a Garth Brooks song when the crowd seemed younger and needed something with a little more electricity in it. He sprinkled in his own originals sparingly, carefully, the way a man seasons a dish he's not entirely sure about. A song here, a song there, watching faces for reaction, pulling back if the energy in the room shifted. The originals never got much reaction. They weren't bad songs. Anyone who truly listened would have said they were actually quite good. Complex in structure, but emotionally transparent. The melodies patient and unhurried. The lyrics precise in the way that only comes from someone who has lived with words for a very long time. But nobody truly listened in a bar on a Friday night in East Nashville. They listened to what they recognized, and Cole's originals were invisible to them. Ghosts of songs that had never had the chance to become familiar. Cole had made peace with this. He told himself he had, anyway. He had 2 children. The eldest, Diane Harrington, was 28 and lived in Chattanooga with her husband and a golden retriever named Biscuit. She called on Sundays, reliably, and the conversations were warm but surface level, the kind that happen between people who love each other but have never quite figured out how to go deeper than the weather and work updates. Diane had grown up watching her father choose music over stability one too many times, and it had calcified something in her. Not hatred, never hatred, but a careful emotional distance that she maintained like a fence she'd built herself, and wasn't sure she wanted to take down. Then there was Tyler. Tyler Harrington was 24, the younger child, and he was the complicated one. He had his father's jaw and his mother's eyes, and a restlessness that neither of them had ever fully understood. He'd dropped out of Belmont University after 2 years studying audio engineering, not because he'd failed, but because he'd stopped going to class in favor of spending 20-hour stretches in a bedroom studio he'd built from second-hand equipment, making music that didn't fit neatly into any genre anyone had a name for. It was country at its bones. You could hear the pentatonic scale, the narrative structure, the plain-spoken honesty in the lyrics, but it was threaded through with something raw and unvarnished that made it feel less like a genre exercise and more like an open wound set to music. Cole and Tyler had not spoken in 14 months. The last conversation had been ugly. It had happened in this very kitchen on a Sunday afternoon in January of the previous year, when Tyler had come home for what Linda had hopefully billed as a family lunch. Cole had asked Tyler what he was planning to do about the 3 months of back rent he owed his roommate. A question that started reasonably enough, but escalated quickly when Tyler accused Cole of caring more about money than music. And Cole had fired back that Tyler didn't know the first thing about what it cost to care about music for 30 years, with nothing to show for it. And then Tyler had said the thing, the specific, surgical, devastating thing that had ended the afternoon and begun the silence. The difference between you and me, Dad, is that I'm not going to spend the rest of my life playing other people's songs in a bar and calling it a career. Cole had not responded. He'd picked up his coffee cup, walked out the back door, and sat in the yard for 2 hours while Linda and Tyler talked in the kitchen in low, careful voices. When he came back inside, Tyler was gone. 14 months. Linda handled it the way she handled most difficult things, with quiet, sustained effort. She texted Tyler. She sent him money when he'd let her, tucking it into cards with careful notes that avoided all the dangerous topics. She mediated through suggestion and gentleness, nudging both men toward the bridge without ever quite forcing either of them to take a step. She was 51 years old and still beautiful in a way that had less to do with appearance than with the steadiness of her presence. The way she filled a room not with noise, but with calm. The way she always seemed to know what the moment needed and provided it without fanfare. Cole's birthday came and went quietly. Linda made chicken and rice for dinner, his favorite, simple and honest, like everything he truly loved. They ate at the kitchen table and talked about small things. A neighbor's new dog, a pothole on their street that the city had been promising to fill for 3 weeks, a movie they'd both wanted to see that had come and gone from theaters before they'd gotten around to it. After dinner, Cole washed the dishes and Linda dried them. And neither of them mentioned Tyler, though both of them were thinking about him. Later that night, Cole sat on the back porch with his acoustic guitar. A battered 1987 Martin D28 with a hairline crack along the body that he'd repaired himself with wood glue and patience, and played into the dark for no one. He played Troubadour first, because it felt appropriate for a 53-year-old birthday, the song's meditation on age and artistic endurance settling around him like a familiar coat. Then he played The Cowboy Rides Away. Then Easy Come Easy Go. Then a fragment of something he'd been working on for 6 months that still didn't have an ending. A melody that climbed and climbed, but never quite found the resolution it was reaching for. He stopped in the middle of the unfinished song and sat in the dark with his hand over the strings, muting them, listening to the night sounds of East Nashville, a car passing, someone's television audible through an open window, the distant train that came through the neighborhood at 10:47 every night, with the punctuality of a Swiss watch. He thought about Tyler. He thought about the things he should have said, and the things he should never have said, and the 14 months of silence that sat between them like a wall built from equal parts pride and pain. He picked up the guitar again and started playing. Not the unfinished song, not a cover, not anything he'd ever played before. Just his hands moving, just instinct, just the night and the Martin, and whatever was left of Cole Harrington after 53 years of carrying a dream he'd never been able to put down. He didn't know it yet, but the melody his hands found that night was the closest he'd ever come to the ending of something. And, simultaneously, the beginning. 3 weeks after Cole's birthday, on a Tuesday morning in the first week of November, Linda knocked on his studio door, a converted utility room at the back of the house, barely large enough for a desk, a recording interface, 2 monitors, and a guitar stand, and told him that Tyler had called. Cole looked up from the chord chart he'd been penciling corrections into. What did he say? Linda leaned against the doorframe, careful, measuring her words the way she always did when the territory was emotional and the ground was uncertain. He said he's been working on something, a song. He said he wants... She paused. He said he wants to know if you'd be willing to listen. The silence in the small room was considerable. That's all? That's all. Cole set down his pencil. He looked at the guitar on the stand. Not the Martin. This was the Telecaster, the old sunburst one with the replaced neck that he used for recording. He looked at it for a long time. Did he say what kind of song? No, just that he's been working on it for a while and he thinks it's... Linda searched for the word Tyler had used. He said it's different from anything he's done before. Cole picked up the pencil again, then set it down again. Then he said, "Tell him he can come by Saturday." Linda let out a breath she'd been holding and nodded once, quickly, before the moment could change its mind. Tyler arrived Saturday at 2 in the afternoon, and Cole watched him come up the front walk from the window, the same way he'd watched him arrive for his whole childhood, lanky and slightly too fast, like someone whose mind was already in the room before his body got there. He was thinner than Cole remembered. His hair was longer, darker against his pale neck, and he was wearing a jacket Cole didn't recognize over a faded gray shirt and jeans with a tear at the left knee. He had a guitar case with him, a battered, hard-sided case that Cole recognized immediately as the one he'd given Tyler for his 16th birthday. A case for the Yamaha acoustic that was Tyler's first serious guitar, bought secondhand from a music shop on Division Street for $120. Tyler had kept it all these years. The fact of that, the quiet, stubborn fact that Tyler had kept the old guitar and carried it here today, did something to Cole's chest that he couldn't quite name. Linda let Tyler in. Cole heard them in the hallway, murmured greetings, a brief, careful hug, Linda's voice asking about the drive. Tyler's voice answering in the low, slightly rough register he'd had since 16. A voice too old for his face. Then Tyler was in the kitchen doorway, and Cole was standing at the kitchen table where he'd set up 2 chairs deliberately, positioning them as he might for a guitar lesson. Angled toward each other, close enough for collaboration, far enough for the comfort of a little distance. And they looked at each other for a moment that lasted considerably longer than a moment. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." A pause. "Thanks for letting me come." "It's your home," Cole said, and meant it, even though it came out flatter than he'd intended. Tyler set the guitar case on the kitchen table and unfastened the clasps. The Yamaha inside was older than Cole had expected. The finish worn to bare wood along the edges, the bridge slightly lifted on one side, the tuning pegs stiff with age, but the strings were new, bright and clean, the kind of detail that told you the player still cared. "Do you want coffee?" Linda asked from the counter. "Yeah, please," Tyler said, without looking away from the guitar. Cole pulled out a chair and sat. Tyler sat across from him, placed the Yamaha on his knee, and adjusted the strap. His hands, Cole noticed, looked like his own hands. The same long fingers, the same slight asymmetry in the left index finger from an old injury, the same way the wrist cocked when settling into position. "So," Cole said. Tyler looked up. The distance between them was still there, the 14 months of silence, solid as furniture. But it was different now. It had a door in it, and Tyler had knocked, and Cole had opened it. That was something. "I wrote this in one night," Tyler said, "about 3 weeks ago. I'd been trying to work on something else and it wasn't going anywhere, and I was having a bad night, not like..." He made a small, dismissive gesture. "Just a bad night, you know? And I picked up the guitar, and this just came out. All of it, pretty much, in about 2 hours. I recorded it on my phone first, then went back and tidied it up. But the bones are all there from that one night." Cole nodded. He knew about those songs. The songs that come out of nowhere, fully formed, carrying something you didn't know was in you. They were rare. They were the ones that mattered. "Play it," he said. Tyler looked down at his hands on the guitar, then back up. And for just a second, he looked exactly like he had at 9 years old, bringing a drawing to Cole to look at. That particular combination of pride and vulnerability. The hope of being truly seen colliding with the fear of being dismissed. He played. The song was called, though he didn't introduce it by name, Cole would only learn the title later, "What I Meant to Say." See, it began with a single finger-picked pattern, simple, spare, descending in a way that felt like something being carefully set down. The chord structure was traditional, almost classical in its country plainness. A I for V with a suspended second that gave it a quality of unresolved longing. A question hanging in the air that the melody kept approaching but never quite answering until the final chorus. But it was the lyrics that hit Cole somewhere he wasn't prepared for. "I've been carrying words like stones in my pocket, heavy enough to keep me from floating away. Every goodbye had a sentence I dropped it. Every hello had 1,000 things I couldn't say. So I'm singing what I meant to say. All the things I swallowed back in the hard light of day. If a song can do what a man can't always. This is what I meant to say." Tyler's voice was unpolished in the way that genuine things are unpolished. Not rough from lack of skill, but rough from honesty, from the refusal to smooth out the edges where the emotion lived. He didn't look at Cole while he sang. He looked at the middle distance, the way people do when they're recalling something rather than performing it. Cole sat completely still. The second verse built on the first, the imagery shifting from the abstract to the specific. A kitchen table at night, a back porch in the dark, a man playing guitar for no one, and not knowing his son was listening from an upstairs window. Cole felt his throat close. He had never known Tyler could hear him from upstairs. He had played out there hundreds of times, believing himself to be alone. The bridge of the song moved into a higher register, Tyler's voice straining slightly, and then finding it, the lyrics circling around the word sorry without ever using it, approaching the concept from 4 different angles, like a man who can't find the front door of a familiar house. The final chorus came back quieter than the first 2, Tyler's playing stripped down to just the essential notes, and when it ended, when the last finger-picked phrase dissolved into silence, there was a quality to the room that Cole associated with the moments after truly great music, a held-breath quality, a reluctance to let ordinary reality back in too quickly. Tyler looked up. Cole realized his jaw was tight. He unclenched it. He looked at his son, at this 24-year-old man across the kitchen table, who had his hands and his mother's eyes, and a gift that Cole had not fully understood until this precise moment. "Play it again," Cole said. Tyler blinked. "What?" "Play it again." From the top, a small, uncertain smile crossed Tyler's face. He looked down at the guitar and played it again. This time, halfway through the first verse, Cole reached for his own guitar, the Martin, which he'd brought to the kitchen earlier without quite consciously deciding to, and began playing along. Softly at first, just outlining the chords, feeling where the song breathed and where it pushed. By the second verse, he was filling in the spaces Tyler left, adding a counter melody that rose under the main line like a current under still water. Tyler glanced up, surprised, then adjusted, making room, and for the first time in 14 months, Cole Harrington and his son were in the same room doing the same thing, and neither of them had to say a single word. Linda stood at the counter with both hands wrapped around her coffee mug, completely still, not wanting to move, afraid that any movement might change the temperature of what was happening in front of her. When the song ended the second time, Cole sat back and set the Martin on the table and looked at Tyler. "That's a real song," he said. Just that. 3 words. But Tyler heard everything in them. The years of withholding, the pride that had no other vehicle, the recognition that one musician gives another when the thing in front of them is genuinely, undeniably good. "There's a festival," Tyler said carefully, "in Knoxville. The Cumberland Valley Country Music Festival. 6 weeks from now. They have an open submission stage. Local and regional artists, no major labels. I submitted the song last week, and they accepted it." He paused. "I submitted it as a duo. Your name and mine. I hope that's okay." Cole looked at him for a long time. "You submitted it without asking me." "I know. I'm sorry. I just..." Tyler stopped. Started again. "I wanted there to be something real to show you before I asked. I didn't want it to just be a conversation. I wanted to show you the song first." A long silence. "How long is the set?" Cole asked. 20 minutes. 3 songs. They want 2 covers and 1 original. I figured we could pick the covers together." Cole nodded slowly, the nod of a man computing something complex. 20 minutes, he said. 20 minutes, Tyler confirmed. Another silence. Then Cole stood, picked up the Martin, and said, "We'll need to work on the bridge. The chord on the B section needs to breathe more. You're rushing it." Tyler stared at him. Then he picked up the Yamaha and said, "Show me what you mean." And just like that, with no apology formally offered or formally received, with the 14 months of silence still technically present, but no longer the loudest thing in the room, Cole Harrington and his son began to work. The rehearsals happened on Saturday afternoons and Sunday mornings in Cole's studio at the back of the house. The 2 of them crowded into the small room with both guitars, and a small recording setup. Tyler's laptop connected to the interface, a reference monitor on the shelf, running through the material methodically. Professionally, the way Cole had always approached music, which was the same way a carpenter approached joinery, with patience, with precision, with the understanding that beauty in the finished product came from the quality of the unseen work underneath. Tyler was a different musician than Cole had expected. He'd known his son was talented in the abstract, theoretical way that parents know their children are capable, the way you might know a fact without having tested it against reality. But sitting across from him in the studio, close enough to watch his hands on the fretboard, Cole found himself revising his assessment substantially upward. Tyler had perfect pitch, or close to it. He could hear a note and name it without thinking, the way some people could glance at a clock and read the time. He also had an instinctive feel for dynamics, for when to pull back and when to push forward, for the emotional weight of a single note held one beat longer than expected. These were not things you could teach. They were either there or they weren't. And in Tyler Harrington, they were clearly, undeniably there. What Tyler lacked was architecture. He understood individual moments of a song intuitively, but the larger structure, the way a song was built, section by section, with deliberate engineering, was less natural to him. This was where Cole came in, and it was, he recognized with a complicated feeling, the thing he actually had to offer that his son didn't already have. "You're writing bridges like they're independent songs," Cole told him on the second Saturday, after they'd run through "What I Meant to Say" 6 times, and the bridge was still not landing correctly. A bridge isn't a new idea. It's a pressure release for the tension the verse and chorus have been building. You don't introduce something new in the bridge. You intensify what's already there, and then let it go. Tyler chewed on this, then tried the bridge again. This time, he didn't change the melody, only the approach, leaning into the existing tension rather than away from it, allowing the harmonic dissonance that had been present but muted to come fully forward. Cole nodded once. There it is. They worked on the 2 covers separately. For the George Strait songs, they'd agreed without much debate that one of the covers would be Strait, because both of them considered him the essential reference point for everything they were trying to do. They chose The Chair. Cole had played it for 20 years, knew it in his sleep. But playing it with Tyler was different from playing it alone. Tyler's voice, younger and rougher than Cole's slightly worn baritone, changed the song's character, made it feel less nostalgic and more immediate, less a memory, and more a present tense experience. For the second cover, after some debate, they chose If Tomorrow Never Comes by Garth Brooks, Tyler's suggestion, and a good one, because the song's emotional territory overlapped with the original material in a way that gave the 20-minute set a thematic coherence. They didn't talk about the fight that had ended things between them, not directly, but they talked around it in the way people talk around something large and unavoidable, circling, making references, leaving space. On the 3rd Sunday of rehearsals during a break, Tyler poured 2 glasses of water and set one in front of Cole and said, without preamble, "I knew you could hear me from the porch. I used to listen from my bedroom window when you played at night." Cole looked at the glass of water. "How often?" "All the time. When I was a kid, I'd open the window and just listen." Tyler paused. "That's where I learned to play, really. Not from lessons, from listening to you." Cole said nothing for a moment. Then, "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." A silence that was not uncomfortable. "The song," Cole said. "The lyric about the window. The upstairs window." Tyler nodded. "That's where it came from." Cole picked up his guitar. "Let's run the set from the top," he said. His voice was steady, but his hands, Tyler noticed, were not entirely. There was a slight tremor in the left one as it settled on the fretboard. The kind of tremor that has nothing to do with muscle and everything to do with something else entirely. Linda watched the rehearsals from the doorway when she could, occasionally from inside the room when she felt invisible enough not to disrupt the concentration. She said very little during the sessions themselves, but processed everything she observed with the quiet intensity she brought to all things that mattered. What she saw was complicated and hopeful in equal measure. She saw two men who were not naturally equipped for emotional transparency, attempting to communicate entirely through the medium of music, and largely succeeding. She saw Cole teaching Tyler in the specific, careful way he taught all his students, but with an attention and investment that he never gave to the Tuesday-Thursday kids on Gallatin Avenue. She saw Tyler receiving correction from his father without defensiveness, which she had never seen before and had not been certain was possible. She also saw what they weren't doing, which was talking about the January argument, about the 14 months, about the specific things Tyler had said in this kitchen that had sent Cole to the backyard for 2 hours. That conversation was still waiting. She could feel it in the room, patient as a creditor. But she had learned, over 27 years of marriage to Cole Harrington, that there were many routes to forgiveness, and not all of them went through words. In the fourth week of rehearsals, a Thursday evening, Cole got a phone call from Dwight Calloway at the Broken Spoke. "George Strait's people called me," Dwight said, without greeting. Cole set down the chord chart he was editing. "What? Don't ask me how. I think it was through the festival. You know, Dwight Jr. has been helping coordinate the Cumberland Valley thing, and they listed the venue on the artist bios. Somebody from Strait's team reached out and asked about local acts doing acoustic sets in the area that week. I gave them your name." Cole said nothing. "Cole, you there?" "I'm here." "What do you mean, gave them my name?" I said, Cole Harrington does a solo set here every Friday and Saturday. He does the best Strait covers in East Nashville. And if you're looking for local acoustic talent that week, he's your guy." Dwight paused. They didn't say much after that, just thanked me and said they'd keep it in mind. But Cole, that's Strait's people, man. Cole sat very still in the studio chair. George Strait. The name had been woven into the fabric of Cole's musical life for so long that it had almost ceased to be a real person and become instead a standard, a benchmark, a direction to face. Cole had seen him live twice. Once in 1994 at the Grand Ole Opry, once in 2013 at Bridgestone Arena. A show so technically pristine and emotionally overwhelming that Cole had driven home in silence and sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. George Strait didn't perform with pyrotechnics or elaborate staging. He walked out, stood at a microphone, and sang. That was the whole of it. And it was more than enough, because the voice and the songs and the unshakable authenticity of the man's presence made everything else irrelevant. "Cole," Dwight said again. "Yeah. You good?" "Yeah, I'm good." Cole looked at the Martin on the stand. "Thanks, Dwight. Don't thank me. Just play well." He hung up and sat in the studio for a long time. Not playing, not working on charts, just sitting with the information and what it might or might not mean. He didn't tell Tyler. Not yet. He didn't want the weight of it to change anything about what they were building. Didn't want the rehearsals to shift from the pure, concentrated work of two musicians making something honest into something performance-anxious and calculated. What they had in these Saturday afternoons and Sunday mornings was real and clean, and he was afraid, in the way of someone who has learned through experience that good things are fragile, to introduce anything that might compromise it. He told Linda that night, in bed, in the dark, the way he told her the things that were too large for ordinary conversation. She was quiet for a moment after he finished. Then she said, Do you think he'll actually be there? I don't know. His people asked about local acts. That doesn't mean he'll show up in person, but it might mean that. It might. Another silence. Cole, Linda said. Yeah. Whatever happens at the festival, whether Strait is there or not, whether the crowd is 10 people or 1,000, you know that song of Tyler's is the best thing either of you has ever been part of. He didn't answer, but he reached across and found her hand in the dark, and she felt his fingers close around hers with the particular pressure of a man who is trying to say something he doesn't have words for. The 5th week of rehearsals brought something unexpected. Friction. It started on a Saturday afternoon, 4 days before the festival, when Cole suggested changing the key of what I meant to say from D to C, arguing that it would sit better in Tyler's voice during the upper register of the bridge and reduce the strain that had been showing up in the 3rd and 4th run-throughs of each session. Tyler disagreed, not calmly. The song was written in D, he said, his voice taking on the particular flat quality that Cole now recognized as his defensive register. The key is part of what it is. D major has a specific emotional color. It's open. It resonates differently in the body of an acoustic guitar. C major is softer. The song isn't soft. The song isn't about the key, Cole said. The song is about the lyrics and the melody and the performance. If your voice is straining in the bridge, the audience hears the effort and stops hearing the emotion. My voice isn't straining. Tyler, I can hear it. Then your hearing is off. The temperature in the studio dropped several degrees. Cole set down the Martin with a careful, deliberate movement that Tyler had learned as a child meant his father was choosing not to do something he wanted to do. I have 40 years of stage experience, Cole said quietly. When I tell you something about performance, it's not opinion. It's accumulated observation. Tyler's jaw tightened in the exact way Cole's did when he was angry and trying not to show it. And I wrote the song. I know what it needs. You wrote a great song. That doesn't make you the final authority on how it should be performed. It's my song. It's our set, Cole said. And the word "our" landed in the room with a weight that surprised both of them. A long, charged silence. Tyler looked at the guitar in his lap. Cole looked at the wall. The studio, never a large room, felt considerably smaller. It was Tyler who moved first. He played the bridge in D, as written, and Cole listened. And they both knew that Cole was right about the strain. It was subtle, but it was there, a slight thinning of the voice at the peak of the phrase. But they also both heard what Tyler meant about the key, about the resonance of D major in the body of the guitar, the way it gave the song an openness that C would slightly compress. Cole picked up the Martin and played the passage in C, then in D, then in C again. Play it in D, he said finally, but drop the melody a step in the bridge, just the top note of the phrase. Bring it down a whole step. You get the resonance of the key, and you don't push the voice past where it's comfortable. Tyler played it, tried the adjustment, played it again. It was undeniably better. Okay, Tyler said. Just that. Okay, Cole said. They ran the set from the top and didn't stop until it was right. The night before the festival, Cole sat on the back porch with the Martin and played the same formless melody he'd been playing on his birthday. The one that had no ending, the one that climbed and climbed without resolution. And this time, with 6 weeks of Saturdays and Sundays, and Tyler's song living in his hands and his chest, and whatever passed for his memory, in the place where music lived, he found the ending. It was simple. It was 4 notes. It came from nowhere and from everywhere at once, the way endings always do when they're the right ones. And and Cole played it 3 times to make sure it was real, and then he sat in the dark with his hand over the strings and his eyes closed and felt something release in him that had been held for a very long time. He didn't cry. He was not a man who cried easily, but his throat was tight. And when Linda opened the back door and looked at him, she could see enough in his face to walk out and sit beside him without asking anything. And he was grateful for that. And for her, in the way you are grateful for the things that have held you together without your ever having fully acknowledged the weight they were carrying. The Cumberland Valley Country Music Festival was held on the second weekend of December, in a large outdoor venue on the banks of the Tennessee River just outside Knoxville. A broad, flat space that had been transformed for the occasion with a main stage, 2 secondary stages, food vendors, merchandise tents, and the kind of organized festive energy that comes from good planning and cold air, and a crowd of several thousand people who share a genuine and unironic love of a form of music that the rest of the cultural world periodically dismisses and periodically rediscovers. Cole and Tyler drove to Knoxville on Friday morning in Cole's truck, a 2009 Ford F-150 with 200,000 miles and a heater that worked on the right side but not the left. And they talked during the drive in the way people talk when they are nervous and trying not to show it. About the music, about logistics, about the traffic on I-40, about a rest stop outside Cookeville where they got bad coffee, and Tyler complained about it with a specificity and passion that made Cole laugh, the first real laugh, unguarded and full, that he could remember sharing with his son in years. They checked into a motel on the edge of Knoxville, 2 rooms, side by side, a consideration Linda had quietly built into the reservation without comment, and went to the venue for sound check at 2 in the afternoon. The open submission stage was a secondary stage, smaller than the main one but well equipped, with a good sound system and an attentive crew. Their sound engineer for the day was a young man named Derek Ostrowski, 20-something with an earring and an extremely competent manner, who ran Cole and Tyler through their sound check with efficient professionalism and then told them, with the flat certainty of someone reporting a weather condition, that the open stage time slot just before theirs had been canceled by a no-show act, and they'd be moved up 20 minutes. Cole and Tyler exchanged a look. 20 minutes earlier, Cole said. "That's right," Derek confirmed. "You're on at 4:40 instead of 5. Is that a problem?" "No," Tyler said. "No," Cole agreed. It wasn't a problem for the music. The music was ready. Had been ready for a week. Both of them knew it, could feel it in the way the set flowed in rehearsal. Clean and easy, each song connecting to the next with the naturalness of something organic rather than assembled. What the 20-minute shift did was alter the crowd situation. At 4:40 on a Saturday at a festival with a main stage headliner going on at 6, the secondary stages drew a different kind of audience. People wandering between acts, families with children taking a break from the main stage crush, festival goers in the exploratory, unhurried mode of the early evening. It was not a hostile crowd, but it was not a primed one either. This was fine. Cole had played to indifferent crowds for 30 years. You played to the room you were in, not the room you wished you were in. What neither of them knew, what Cole would only learn afterward, in pieces, from Derek and from Dwight Calloway, who'd heard it secondhand from a festival coordinator named Janet Albright, was that a very specific set of circumstances had aligned in the 90 minutes before their set. George Strait was at the festival. He had arrived that afternoon as a guest of the festival's primary sponsor, a Nashville-based music foundation that had been funding emerging country talent for 15 years. He was not scheduled to perform. He was there in the capacity of a supporter, a patron, The kind of presence that lends weight and legitimacy to an event simply by existing at it. He had done a brief meet and greet with the festival organizers in the afternoon, and was, by all accounts, enjoying himself in the low-key way of a man who is comfortable in his own skin and in the specific environment of a country music festival. The sounds, the smells, the particular quality of the crowd. At approximately 4:30, Strait and the two members of his team accompanying him had moved away from the main stage area and were walking the festival grounds. The kind of wandering that happens when the people you're with need food or a break from the main event. When they passed within earshot of the open submissions stage, Cole and Tyler were at the side of the stage, going through a final quiet run-through. Not playing amplified, just whispering through the changes together. The way musicians do when they need to inhabit the music one more time before committing to it publicly. Cole was running the chord progression of What I Meant to Say on the Martin, barely touching the strings, producing a sound barely louder than breath. That was what Strait heard first. Not the amplified set, the quiet run-through. He stopped walking. His associate, a tall woman named Rebecca Ashford, who handled his scheduling and had been with him for 12 years, said later that she'd seen him stop like that perhaps 3 times in her career with him. That particular quality of stillness, the held attention of a man whose ear has registered something that his brain is still catching up to. He stood there for approximately 30 seconds. Then he said, quietly, to no one in particular, "Who are these guys?" No one in his immediate vicinity knew. Rebecca made a mental note to find out. Cole and Tyler took the stage at 4:42. The crowd in front of the open submissions stage at that moment numbered perhaps 200 people, some seated on hay bales arranged in rows, some standing toward the back, some passing through on their way to somewhere else. A modest gathering, honest in its ordinariness, the kind of audience that asks nothing of you except that you mean what you play. Cole adjusted the microphone to his height. He was 6'1", and most stands were set for shorter performers, and looked out at the crowd with the practiced equanimity of someone who had done this hundreds of times and still felt the particular quiet alertness of a body about to do the thing it was made for. Tyler stood to his right, slightly back, the Yamaha on his knee, his eyes on his hands. "Good afternoon," Cole said into the microphone. His voice was unhurried, conversational, without performance in it. "I'm Cole Harrington. This is my son, Tyler. We're from Nashville. We're going to play you 3 songs. Thank you for being here." That was it. No preamble, no biography, no explanation. Cole had always believed that a musician who needed to explain himself before playing had already lost something. He looked at Tyler. Tyler looked back at him. A nod, small, barely visible, passed between them. They opened with The Chair. The song began with Cole's guitar and his voice, alone for the first 2 lines. The way the arrangement called for, just the man, and the instrument, and the unhurried, slightly wry opening of a song about the best kind of accident. Tyler came in under him on the second phrase, harmonic and supporting. And the 2 guitars found each other with the ease of things that have been rehearsed, until they no longer feel rehearsed, until they feel simply true. The crowd response was immediate and warm. People who had been walking slowed. A few stopped. The hay bales filled in more completely. The particular acoustic quality of 2 guitars played outdoors in cold December air. The notes carrying cleanly, without the muffled quality of indoor spaces, each tone crystalline and discreet, gave the music a presence that exceeded its volume. They moved from The Chair into If Tomorrow Never Comes, with a brief, comfortable pause. Cole retuning the G string with 4 small turns of the peg, Tyler adjusting the strap on the Yamaha, and the second song drew the crowd further in. A woman near the front had her eyes closed. An older man in a ranch coat had set down his beer and was simply listening, his arms crossed, his face composed in the particular expression of someone who has been reminded of something they'd almost forgotten. The crowd was perhaps 300 now. And then, what I meant to say. Tyler introduced it. Cole had suggested this. It was Tyler's song. Tyler should present it. And Tyler had agreed with only a moment's hesitation. He leaned toward the microphone and said, in the same unadorned way Cole had opened the set, "This last one is an original. I wrote it about a year ago. It's about the things we mean to say to the people we love and don't, for whatever reason." He paused. "This one's for my dad." Cole, standing to Tyler's left, looked straight ahead at the crowd. His jaw was set. His hands on the Martin were absolutely steady. Tyler played the opening finger-picked pattern. The descending figure, simple and spare, each note falling into the cold air like something carefully placed. And Cole came in with him on the second phrase, the counter melody rising underneath, and the song began to move through the crowd in the specific way that genuinely true things move through a gathering of people who are capable of recognizing them. The 200, now closer to 350, maybe 400, people drawn from the surrounding areas of the festival by something they couldn't quite name. The gravitational pull of music that is doing something real went quiet. Not politely quiet. Not the managed quiet of an audience doing the correct thing at a performance. Actually, fully, completely quiet. The kind of silence that happens when people stop thinking about themselves and simply inhabit the present moment, when the boundary between the listener and the listened dissolves. Cole felt it happen. It was not a new sensation for him exactly. He'd felt versions of it over the years, in smaller bars, in occasional moments of particular grace. But he had never felt it at this scale, this totality. The quality of the silence was different from anything in his experience. It was the silence of 400 people breathing at the same time. He kept playing. He kept his eyes forward. He did not look at Tyler. But he could feel him. Could feel his son's presence to his right with a specificity and clarity that had nothing to do with sight. The way musicians feel each other when the playing is truly connected. When the space between two instruments becomes a conversation rather than a coincidence. The first chorus arrived. So I'm singing what I meant to say. All the things I swallowed back in the hard light of day. If a song can do what a man can't always. This is what I meant to say. Tyler's voice on the final line of the chorus did something that hadn't happened in rehearsal. It caught, briefly, on the word, say, a micro-hesitation, a fraction of a second in which the voice and the emotion it was carrying were, for just a moment, the same thing. Not a flaw, the opposite of a flaw. The moment where a performance stops being a performance. In the crowd, something shifted. George Strait had found a position at the left edge of the gathered audience, approximately 2 minutes into the set. He was not easily recognizable at a distance. He was wearing a plain dark jacket and a hat pulled low. The standard low-profile arrangement of a famous person who wants to watch rather than be watched. Rebecca Ashford was beside him. His other associate had gone to find food and was not present for what happened next. Strait stood with his arms at his sides, his weight slightly forward on the balls of his feet, in the way of someone who is paying close attention. He had watched thousands of performances in his life, had been the standard against which other performances were measured for 40 years. And his listening was not the passive absorption of a fan, but the active, technical, emotionally calibrated engagement of a craftsman watching other craftsmen at work. He watched Cole. He watched the way Cole's body inhabited the music, the slight forward lean during the verses, the stillness during the chorus. the right hand moving across the strings with the economy of motion of someone who has eliminated everything unnecessary and kept only what serves the song. He watched Tyler, the rawness of him, the unguarded quality of his voice, the way he played with his whole body involved, less economical than Cole, more physically expressive, a younger man's relationship to the music still discovering its own architecture. He watched them together, the way they listened to each other, the way Cole's counter-melody wove under Tyler's lid line, supportive and precise. The way Tyler, at the bridge, glanced briefly at Cole, not for reassurance, but for the specific musical confirmation of a musician checking the internal clock of a shared performance. The microsecond communication that happens between players who trust each other completely. He had seen that glance before, had exchanged it himself with musicians he'd worked with for years. It was not a glance that could be rehearsed into existence. It came from something real. The bridge of the song built to its peak. Tyler's voice finding the high note cleanly, the adjustment Cole had suggested in week 5 holding perfectly, and then released into the final chorus. Stripped down, quiet, just the essential notes and Tyler's voice and the cold December air carrying both of them across the gathered crowd. If a song can do what a man can't always, this is what I meant to say. The last note dissolved. The silence lasted. Cole would estimate later in conversation with Linda, who would find the detail both moving and somehow exactly right. Approximately 4 seconds, which is an eternity in the context of live performance, an expanse of time enormous enough to contain something genuinely significant. And then George Strait put his hands together and began to applaud. He was not the only one. The crowd had already begun to respond, a wave of applause building from the front rows backward. But his applause was distinct because of where it was coming from. The edge of the crowd to the left, where a man in a dark jacket and a low-pulled hat was clapping with the full, deliberate, unhurried energy of someone who means it completely and is not concerned with whether anyone is watching him do it. Rebecca Ashford watched him and said nothing. She had seen this 3 times in 12 years. She understood what it meant. Cole saw none of this from the stage. He was looking at Tyler. Tyler had his head slightly bowed over the Yamaha, the way he always did in the moment after the song ended, as if needing a second to re-enter ordinary space. Then he looked up at Cole, and Cole saw his son's face in the specific aftermath of a performance that had gone past technique into something else. The open, slightly dazed expression of someone who has just been somewhere very particular and come back. Cole nodded at him. Small, precise, everything. The crowd's applause built and continued well past the normal duration, and a few people near the front were on their feet. And Cole stood at the microphone and said, "Thank you. Thank you very much," in the same unhurried voice he'd used to open the set, and meant it. And that was the whole of it. They walked off the stage into the side area where Derek Ostrowski was already pulling cables, and Tyler set the Yamaha down on its case and turned to Cole. And Cole, who did not hug easily, who expressed affection most naturally through the medium of music and the occasional hand on a shoulder, put his right arm around his son and held on for a moment, briefly and completely. Tyler stood very still. Then he leaned in. Linda was not there to see it, but Cole would tell her that evening, in the motel room, sitting on the edge of the bed, and she would listen with both hands in her lap and her eyes bright, and not say a single word until he finished. And then she would say, "I knew. I always knew it would be that song." They were packing up the guitar cases behind the open stage when Rebecca Ashford found them. Cole saw her coming from 20 feet away, a tall woman moving with the purposeful efficiency of someone who navigates events professionally. cutting through the post-performance crowd of festival-goers and stage crew with the precise angles of someone who always knows exactly where she is going. She stopped in front of them and said, "Cole Harrington?" "Yeah," Cole said. "I'm Rebecca Ashford. I work with George Strait." She said it without drama, a statement of logistical fact. "He was in the audience for your last song. He'd like to say hello, if you have a minute." The silence that followed lasted approximately 2 seconds, which was about 1.5 seconds longer than professional courtesy required, and was caused by the complete failure of Cole Harrington's composure to remain intact. Tyler, beside him, had gone perfectly still. "He's here," Cole said. "He is, just over at the production area by the main stage. He's got about 15 minutes before he's expected elsewhere. If you'd like to come now?" Cole looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at Cole. Cole picked up the Martin case. "Yeah," he said. "We'd like to come now." The production area behind the main stage was a contained world of its own. Trailers and equipment cases and purposeful people moving in all directions. And George Strait was standing near the edge of it, outside the immediate activity, with a cup of coffee and the self-contained ease of a man who is entirely comfortable in his own dimensions. He was 73 years old and looked like himself. The same face that had been on album covers and concert posters for 4 decades, slightly more lined and weathered now, as faces earn their lines and weather, but fundamentally unchanged in the way that genuinely iconic faces are unchanged, the essential architecture too specific and to itself to be substantially altered by time. He saw them coming and nodded. A single, unhurried nod, the acknowledgement of one musician to another. Cole had met famous musicians before, in the accumulated decades of working at the edges of the industry. He'd played on the same bills as artists with record deals and radio play, had brushed up against the edges of the world he'd always wanted to fully inhabit. He knew, theoretically, how to be present with a famous person without being overwhelmed by the fact of them. The theory, in this particular instance, required significant effort to put into practice. George Strait extended a hand, and Cole shook it. And the handshake was firm and direct. The handshake of someone who learned it from honest people in a working context. "Cole Harrington," Strait said. Not a question. "Yes, sir." Strait looked at Tyler. "And this is your son?" "Tyler Harrington," Tyler said, and shook Strait's hand with a composure that impressed Cole, who knew what the composure was costing him. "That last song," Strait said. He wasn't a man who moved through preamble unnecessarily. "The original." "Who wrote that?" "I did," Tyler said. "Sir." Strait nodded, looking at Tyler with the specific, appraising attention of a craftsman evaluating material. "How long have you been writing?" "Since I was about 15. Seriously, I mean. Before that, it was just playing around." "Where are you out of?" "Nashville." "You working with anyone? Label? Manager?" Tyler shook his head. "No, just... We played the submission stage today. This is our first public performance together." Strait looked at Cole. "You've been doing the bars. The Broken Spoke on Woodland, Friday and Saturday nights." Cole heard himself saying it and was aware, for the first time in years, of no apology in it. "I know Dwight Calloway," Strait said. "He called that one right." He looked at Tyler again. The lyric in the second verse. "A back porch in the dark. A man playing guitar for no one. That's real." Tyler glanced at Cole. Then he said, "It is, yeah." Strait looked between them, taking in the two of them together. The quality of what was between them, the specific relational topography that was visible to anyone paying attention, and something moved briefly in his expression. Something that was not quite a smile, but was in the neighborhood of one. "The arrangement you worked out together," he said. "The counter melody in the verse. That was yours." He looked at Cole. "Yes, sir. It serves the song." A pause. "That's harder than it sounds. Making something that serves rather than competes." Cole nodded. He understood exactly what Strait meant, with the understanding that comes not from explanation, but from decades of working toward the same principle. "I want to ask you something," Strait said to Tyler. "The song, have you recorded it properly? Not demo quality, a real recording?" "Not yet. I've got a rough version on my setup at home, but nothing." "I want to recommend someone," Strait said. He looked at Rebecca, who had anticipated this and was already producing a business card. "Bill Tennyson. He produces out of his own studio in Nashville, East Side. Small operation, but very specific quality. I worked with him 20 years ago on a project that never went anywhere, but the recordings were extraordinary." He handed the card to Tyler. "Tell him I sent you. He'll know what that means." Tyler held the card carefully, as if it were something that might dissolve. "I can't promise anything beyond that," Strait said, with the direct honesty of a man who doesn't deal in false currency. "The music business is what it is, and I'm not in the business of making promises I can't keep. But that song deserves a real recording, and you two deserve to hear what it sounds like when it's properly served." He looked at Cole one more time, and Cole held the look, the long, direct, mutual recognition of two men who understand each other at the precise depth of the shared thing they love. 40 years, Strait said quietly, not as a question. He had seen it. The calluses, the posture, the way Cole inhabited the instrument, all of it legible to someone who knew what to read. 40 years, Cole said. Strait nodded, slowly, with the weight of a man who knows exactly what 40 years of anything costs and what it produces and what it is worth. "Keep playing," he said, to Cole, to Tyler, to both of them. Then Rebecca touched Strait's arm gently, indicating that the 15 minutes had elapsed, and he nodded to them both, the same unhurried, precise nod with which he'd greeted them, and turned and walked back into the production area with the quiet, deliberate movement of a man who has always known exactly which direction to go. Cole and Tyler stood in the cold December air and watched him go. Neither of them spoke for a considerable length of time. It was Tyler who finally broke it. He said, "Did that actually happen?" Cole exhaled, a long, slow breath that carried the compressed weight of approximately 40 years. "Yeah," he said, "that actually happened." Tyler looked at the business card in his hand. Then he looked at his father, at this man who had spent 4 decades carrying a dream in a flannel shirt and driving to gigs in a truck that heated only on the right side, who had played 3 covers per set in a bar on Woodland Street for 20 years and never stopped believing that the music itself was worth it, independent of everything the music hadn't brought him. "Dad," Tyler said. Cole looked at him. "I'm sorry for what I said in January. Last year, the December air was cold and the festival crowd moved around them, and somewhere on the main stage, a band was doing a sound check for the evening headliner, the bass notes carrying through the ground." "I know," Cole said. "That's not—" "I know you're sorry," Cole said, not unkindly. "And I'm sorry for what I said back. There were things I said that—" He stopped, started again, with the careful deliberateness of a man who has been thinking about this for 14 months and wants to get it right. "I made choices in my life that had costs, real costs, for you and your sister and your mother. I don't regret the music, but I regret not being clearer about what I was asking all of you to carry while I followed it. That's on me." Tyler nodded, his throat working. "You were right that I spent decades playing other people's songs," Cole continued. "You were right. What you were wrong about is why." He looked at Tyler steadily. "I played those songs because I love them. Because Strait And Haggard and Jennings and Williams were the men who taught me what music could be. I'm not ashamed of covering great songs, Tyler. I'm not ashamed of the broken spoke or the $40 a lesson. That life. He stopped again, and when he found the words, they came out quietly. That life made you. The listening from the upstairs window. The song you wrote. This thing we did today. All of it came from that life. I wouldn't trade it. Tyler wiped the back of his hand across his face, in a gesture he clearly hadn't intended to make. Cole put a hand on his son's shoulder. Left it there. Call Bill Tennyson. Monday morning, he said. Tyler laughed. One short, rough, genuinely happy sound. The laugh of someone who has been crying and laughing at the same time, which is the laugh that happens in the specific aftermath of something difficult becoming something else. Yeah, he said. Okay. Monday morning. Cole called Linda from the parking lot while Tyler went to get food from one of the festival vendors. She answered on the second ring. He could hear the television in the background. She'd been watching something. The Friday night movie she watched by herself when he was away. A habit she'd maintained for 20 years. And the sound of it was the most familiar thing in the world. How'd it go? She said. Cole stood by the truck in the dark, the festival lights behind him casting long shadows across the gravel, and thought about how to answer that. Good, he said. And then, because it was Linda, and because 40 years of marriage had earned this particular kind of inadequacy, its translation. Really good. A pause. Tell me, he told her. She listened without interrupting. She was always a perfect listener, her silence always full and present, never absent. And when he finished, there was a moment of quiet in which he could hear her breathing and could picture her face exactly. The expression she wore when something moved her, and she was waiting to be sure of her own voice before using it. George Strait, she finally said. George Strait. Oh, Cole. Those two words, oh, Cole, said everything. Said, I know what this means to you. Said, I have been watching you carry this for a very long time. Said, I am so glad. Said, at the deepest level of what 40 years of loving someone produces in the vocabulary of two people, you deserve this. Cole leaned against the truck and looked up at the sky above Knoxville, which was dark and clear and enormous. The way Tennessee skies are in December, when the weather has come through and left the air clean behind it. Tyler apologized, he said. Another pause. Then, did you? Yeah. A small, warm sound from Linda that was not quite a laugh. Good, she said. Good. They stayed on the phone for a few more minutes, talking about nothing in particular. The drive home tomorrow, Diane's Sunday call, the pothole on their street that was probably still unfilled. And the ordinariness of it was the best part. The way the enormous things had settled into the ordinary conversation and become part of it. Integrated, assimilated, carried forward. Drive safe tomorrow, Linda said. I will. Tell Tyler I love him. I'll tell him. Cole. Yeah. I love you too. I know, he said. I love you too. He hung up and stood by the truck a little longer, not ready to go inside yet, not wanting to rush the particular quality of the night. Above him, the sky held its stars with the patient indifference of something that has always been there and will always be there. And below it, Cole Harrington, 53 years old, East Nashville, 40 years of music and everything that came with it, breathed the cold December air and felt, with a clarity and completeness that was entirely new to him, exactly where he was. Tyler came back with 2 cardboard boats of pulled pork and cornbread, and they sat on the tailgate of the truck and ate in the cold. and Cole told Tyler that his mother sent her love. And Tyler nodded and looked at his food for a moment and said quietly, "Tell her I'll call Sunday." "Tell her yourself," Cole said. Tyler looked up. "Call her tonight," Cole said. "Don't wait." Tyler held his food and his father's gaze for a long moment, and then he said, "Yeah, okay." He pulled out his phone. Cole climbed off the tailgate and gave him the privacy of a few feet, leaning against the side of the truck, looking out at the festival lights and eating his cornbread, and listening without listening to the sound of his son's voice beginning. "Hey, Mom. Yeah, it's me. It was... Mom, you're not going to believe..." January came to Nashville with its characteristic gray determination. The sky low and the air wet cold in the specific way of the Mid-South in winter. And the city moved through it with the contained energy of a place that is always, in some layer of itself, working. Cole drove to Riverside Strings on Tuesdays and Thursdays and taught his 12 students, the 9-year-old who was just beginning to understand that the left hand and the right hand had to cooperate, the 61-year-old retired pharmacist named Howard Blaine, who had always wanted to learn and had finally, pragmatically, decided he wasn't getting any younger. He played the broken spoke on Fridays and Saturdays. 3 straight songs per set minimum, the covers he'd been playing for years now, inseparable from his own sense of musical identity. Not imitation, not tribute exactly, but communion, the way anyone carries forward the people who showed them who they could be. He added what I meant to say to his set. Played it alone, on the Martin, without Tyler's voice and guitar alongside it. And it was different without Tyler. Thinner, missing the tension between the 2 guitars. But it was still recognizably itself, still the thing it was. And the people at the Broken Spoke responded to it in the way they rarely responded to Cole's originals. With stillness, with attention, with that specific quality of presence that is the only real gift an audience can give. After the 3rd Friday of playing it, Dwight Calloway stopped him at the end of the night. While Cole was packing up the Martin, Dwight set a beer on the bar and leaned his elbows on the wood and looked at Cole with an expression that was more serious than his usual backfiring truck cheerfulness. "That new one," Dwight said. "Yeah. Is that yours or Tyler's?" "Both," Cole said. "More Tyler's. I just helped with the arrangement." Dwight nodded slowly, the way a man nods when he's been confirmed in something he already believed. "It's the one," he said. "You know that." Cole buckled the guitar case. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." "I'm not getting ahead of anything. I'm telling you what I hear and what I've been hearing in this bar for 20 years, and that song is different from everything else. It's the one." Dwight picked up his own beer and took a drink. "I'm glad you and that boy worked things out." Cole looked at him. "How do you know about that?" "Cole, I've known you for 2 decades. I watched you play on a Friday night for 14 straight months with that thing on your face. That thing you carry when something's wrong with Tyler. And then, one day, it was gone." Dwight shrugged, large and simple. "Good father, that's what I see. Even when it's hard." Cole said nothing. He finished buckling the case and picked it up and thanked Dwight for the Shiner Bock and walked out into the January night. He sat in the truck for a moment before starting it and thought about what Dwight had said. Good father, even when it's hard, and turned it over in his mind with the critical attention he brought to everything, looking for the falseness in it, the flattery, the oversimplification. He couldn't quite find it, which didn't mean it was fully true, but it meant it was truer than Cole had been allowing himself to believe. He started the truck and drove home through the quiet Nashville streets, the Martin on the back seat, the heater working on the right side. Tyler called Bill Tennyson on Monday morning, as promised. Tennyson's studio, located in a converted warehouse space on Riverside Drive in East Nashville, not 3 miles from Cole's house, was exactly as Strait had described it. Small, specific, and oriented entirely toward the quality of what it produced, rather than the efficiency with which it produced it. Tennyson himself was in his late 60s, a tall, angular man with a gray beard and the patient, slightly meditative manner of someone who has spent decades in rooms where the goal was to listen precisely. He'd worked with major labels in the 80s and 90s, produced records that had charted, and then, by choice, not necessity, had walked away from the scale of that world and toward the smaller, quieter work of making recordings that were primarily about the music. He met with Tyler and Cole together, at their request, for what was described as an initial conversation and lasted 4 hours. He listened to the phone recording of What I Meant to Say, the rough version Tyler had made on his setup at home, twice without comment. Then he asked Tyler to play it live in the studio, acoustically. No amplification. Tyler played. Cole sat in the corner of the control room and watched through the glass. When Tyler finished, Tennyson sat for a moment in the specific silence of someone who is not deciding whether the thing is good, he had already decided, but determining exactly what the thing is and what it needs. "The recording I want to make," Tennyson said, "is this. What I just heard. 2 guitars, 2 voices. I want your father on it because the counter melody he wrote is part of the song now and it should be in the permanent version. And no more than that. Maybe a stand-up bass, very low in the mix, just to anchor the bottom end. But no production layering, no overdubs, no atmosphere. Just the song, as honestly as we can capture it." Tyler nodded. Tennyson looked at Cole. "You're in?" Cole had not been asked this yet, formally. He had assumed he was in and had been going on that assumption. But being asked directly was different. It put something in his hands that he hadn't consciously been holding. "I'm in," he said. They recorded over 2 weekends in February. It was the most concentrated, demanding, and satisfying work Cole could remember doing. Tennyson ran the sessions with the precision of a man who believes that the difference between a merely good recording and a great one lives in the details. The placement of the microphones, the specific acoustic of the room at different times of day, the way 2 instruments and 2 voices interact in a space, and what that interaction produces in the air between them. They recorded the song 14 times over the 2 weekends, took the best elements of 5 different takes, and assembled them with surgical care. Tennyson making decisions at the console with the quiet authority of someone who has been doing this long enough to know what the music needs better than his own preferences. The final recording lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds. When Tennyson played it back in the control room, full volume, the monitors filling the space with something that was immediately and irreducibly itself, Cole and Tyler sat side by side and listened in the way you listen to something that has moved from inside you to outside you and become an object in the world, independent and permanent. Cole's counter-melody in the recording was more present than he'd expected. Tennyson had placed the microphone for Cole's guitar slightly closer than Cole had assumed, and the result was that the 2 guitars were more equal in the mix than in their live performances. Tyler's lead clear and forward, Cole's counter-melody flowing under it with a presence that was warm and structural, the musical equivalent of a foundation made visible. It was, objectively, the best thing Cole Harrington had ever been part of. He sat in Tennyson's control room at 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening in February and understood this with the complete absence of ego or qualification that comes only from being in the presence of something that exceeds the self that made it. "Well," Tyler said beside him. "Yeah," Cole said. Tennyson was at the console, his back to them, making notes in his engineer's shorthand, giving them the privacy of his turned back. He said, without turning around, "I want to send this to 3 people. With your permission. People whose opinion I trust, and whose connections are real. Who? Tyler asked. Tennyson named 3 people. Cole recognized 2 of the names. One was a producer who had worked with several of the artists Cole considered central to the tradition. The other was an A&R director at a small but well-regarded independent label in Nashville that had been releasing quality country music for 15 years without chasing trends. "I'm not promising anything," Tennyson said, the same disclaimer Strait had offered in Knoxville, the same honest refusal to trade in currency that wasn't real. "I'm promising that the right ears will hear it." Cole looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at Cole. "Send it," they said, almost simultaneously. 6 weeks after the recording sessions, in early April, the A&R director from the independent label called Tyler. The call lasted 40 minutes. Tyler took it in his car, parked on the street outside his apartment, and Cole heard about it afterward. That evening, at the kitchen table on Caldwell Avenue, Tyler sitting in the same chair he'd sat in when he'd first played the song for his father. The Yamaha, in its case, on the floor beside him. Linda making coffee at the counter. The label wanted to release What I Meant to Say as a single. They wanted it to be the anchor of an EP, 5 to 7 songs recorded with Tennyson. Same approach, same commitment to the music over the production. They wanted Cole on all of it. They were not offering a major label advance or a radio promotion budget or any of the things that had been the metrics of success in the industry Cole had spent his life orbiting. What they were offering was a real release, proper distribution, and the specific credibility of a label that had spent 15 years building a reputation for releasing things that were actually worth releasing. Tyler told all of this to his parents in the kitchen with the measured, slightly stunned delivery of someone who is still in the process of understanding what has happened. And Linda stood at the counter with her coffee and her eyes bright and her hands perfectly still. Cole listened without interrupting. When Tyler finished, there was a silence in the kitchen that was the very best kind. Full, warm, resonant, like the moment after a song ends when the music is still present in the air, even though the playing has stopped. "What do you think?" Tyler asked his father. Cole looked at his son, looked at the guitar case on the floor, the old hard-sided case he'd given Tyler for his 16th birthday, still carrying the Yamaha all these years, looked at Linda at the counter. He picked up his coffee mug. "I think," he said, "we have work to do." Tyler exhaled, a long, complete breath. Then he reached down and unlatched the guitar case, and in the kitchen on Caldwell Avenue, in East Nashville, on an April evening with the windows open and the first warm air of spring moving through the room, Cole Harrington and his son began to play. The EP was released in August on a Tuesday, which is when music is released, and it went out into the world the way all honest things go out into the world. Quietly at first, then gradually, not quietly at all. What I Meant to Say was the lead single. It appeared first on streaming platforms, then on a handful of radio stations that specialized in independent country. Small signals, regional reach, the kind of airplay that doesn't move big numbers but moves the right ones. The response was immediate among the listeners who found it. Not the explosive, algorithmic virality of songs designed for that purpose, but the slower, more durable spread of something that people heard once and needed to hear again, and then sent to someone they loved. A music writer in Nashville reviewed the EP in an online publication dedicated to American roots music, describing the title track as a masterwork of intergenerational simplicity. 2 guitars, 2 voices, and more emotional intelligence per chord change than most records manage in a full career. He did not mention George Strait in the review, though he noted that the tradition informing the EP was unmistakable in the best possible way. Cole read the review once, at his desk in the studio, and set it aside. What reviews said about music was interesting, but largely irrelevant to what music was. He had learned this, or relearned it, he'd probably always known it, through the particular education of the past year. What mattered was this: the song existed, recorded honestly, released into the world, available for anyone who needed it. What mattered was Tyler, who called on Sunday evenings now, reliably, like Diane, the calls warm and specific and going considerably deeper than the weather. What mattered was Linda, who had always known what both of them were and had held the space between them with a steadiness that deserved more acknowledgement than Cole had managed to give it over the years, and whom he was trying now, at 53, imperfectly and earnestly, to thank in the daily, accumulated, present tense way that was the only real currency of gratitude. What mattered was the broken spoke on Woodland Street, where Dwight Calloway had put a small framed copy of the EP artwork behind the bar, and told everyone who asked that Cole Harrington had been playing that stage for 20 years, and if they'd been paying attention, they wouldn't be surprised. What mattered was the Martin D28 in the studio, and the Tuesday-Thursday students on Gallatin Avenue, and the melody that had finally found its ending on a back porch in East Nashville on a 53rd birthday in November. What mattered was a festival in Knoxville in December, a cold afternoon, a secondary stage, 400 people going quiet. Truly, completely, lastingly quiet. In the specific way that only happens when something real is being offered and received. What mattered was a man in a dark jacket at the edge of a crowd, putting his hands together. Cole played the Broken Spoke on the first Friday in September, 3 weeks after the EP release. He played his standard set, Strait, Haggard, a few others. And at the end, as always, he played What I Meant to Say. The bar was fuller than usual that night. Word had gotten around, the way word gets around in a neighborhood about a thing that has been there all along and has finally announced itself. There were faces Cole didn't recognize, younger people. Couples who had probably found the EP online and followed it back to this bar on Woodland Street to hear the man who'd made it play in person. He played the song alone, on the Martin, the way he'd been playing it on Fridays, without Tyler's voice, without the second guitar, the arrangement reduced to its skeleton, and still, somehow, standing. When he finished, the bar was quiet for a moment. Then, Dwight Calloway, standing behind the bar with his gray ponytail and his laugh like a truck backfiring, started clapping with both hands raised above his head like a man who has been waiting a long time to make exactly this gesture. The room followed. Cole stood at the microphone with the Martin and accepted the applause with the same unhurried, unperformed gratitude he brought to everything. Nodded once, said thank you, meant it. He stepped off the stage, set the Martin in its case, and sat at the end of the bar where Dwight had already placed a Shiner Bock, and he drank it slowly, and he listened to the bar come back to life around him. Conversations resuming, the jukebox starting up, the Friday night noise of people who are alive and in a room together and glad of it. His phone buzzed, a text from Tyler. "Heard you played it tonight. How'd it go?" Cole typed back, "Good crowd. 3 dots. Then, Tennyson wants to start the EP sessions next month. You free the second weekend of October?" Cole looked at the bar, at the faces he'd been looking at for 20 years, and the new ones that had found their way in, at the framed EP artwork behind the counter, and the neon Budweiser sign, and the small wooden stage barely big enough for a man and his guitar. He typed, "I'm free." Then he put the phone in his pocket and finished his beer, and sat in the noise and light of the Broken Spoke on Woodland Street in East Nashville, and was, with a completeness and precision that had not always been available to him, entirely present. Outside, Nashville carried on in all its directions. The river moving south, the music in 100 venues, the studios lit at midnight, the unfinished songs and the finished ones, the careers that had found their paths and the ones still looking, the fathers and the sons and the long roads between them. And somewhere in a quiet room, in a house on Caldwell Avenue, a woman named Linda Harrington read the music review one more time, smiled to herself in the specific way of someone whose patience has been justified by something real, and turned off the light.